Hold on everybody, I just wanted to make a quick overview on how I made the factory OEM power running boards work on my non-factory equipped 07 Tahoe. Show you, these are the factory boards, and they do work like factory. Even still has the safety feature where you can put weight on it and it'll cut off and reset. So to do this, I actually had to research a pretty good bit. I found one company that made a universal running board controller, but they quit selling them a couple years ago. So I had to kind of research and figure out how I could make them work. So what I ended up doing was buying the amp research controller separately. It was, I think, $93 plus tax. So what I did, I found a bunch of old YouTube videos that showed kind of the wiring, what pins or what color wires do what, and then I just kind of traced the pins out. I found the male plug for sale separately and made my own harness. So a quick little overview. So if we're looking at it like with the labels facing up, the center column on the bottom row will be the power wire going straight to the battery. I have a 30 amp fuse in this fuse holder right here, and then the center column top row is going to be the ground going straight to the battery. On the left column, this red and black wire paired together, they are going to the driver's side, or I mean the passenger side, excuse me, motor. And then this wire above it is the door trigger wire, which the front and rear trigger wires are tied together into this one singular wire. And then it's mirrored on the other side. This is the driver's side motor wires on the bottom two pins, and then this top blue wire is the trigger wire for the driver's side. You could also, if you aren't as wiring savvy, you could buy the wiring harness separately from AMP. They have a website, I believe it's electricstep.com, and you can order pretty much any part they sell individually. But I believe the harness was like around $135 plus like $20 shipping plus tax. So it's going to end up being around $180. And this plug, the male plug right here, this black piece, comes with the pins to pin it yourself. I think it was like $10 after tax. And then this spool of wire was like $15 or $20. It was 100 foot, so I have plenty of extra left over. I already had this fuse holder, had an extra one, but those are pretty cheap. You could find online. And then just other wire you can find pretty much anywhere. It doesn't have to be thick, it's just for the door ground sensors. This center pin on the center column, try to find it, it's these two wires right here coming out. That is actually the light output. I will tidy these wires up, I just wanted to leave them loose for the video. But there's the light output, which I have going into a relay, because when I originally had them wired up without a relay, they were dropping voltage whenever I cranked the engine up, because I think the LEDs that I put on pull a little bit more current than the ones that AMP provides with their kit. So I just added that relay so it wouldn't dim whenever I opened the door and crank it up. I'll show you the lights. It's just a little dual row light strip, waterproof. It comes 16 foot long, and it has the scissor mark, so I just cut it and taped up the end so water couldn't go in that end. Double-sided taped it up, just ran the wires for it along with the motor wires. Not too difficult to do. The harness up here for the factory motor, I zip tied it to a hole in the frame. Probably can't really see it, but just to kind of keep it up out of the way, you can see, I'll turn the flash on. You can see that the plug is unused. What I did was add 2 connectors that I could unplug if I needed to. There's the red and the black wire coming in. So I cut these 2 wires right here, these 2 orange and yellow wires, and just left them hanging because they weren't used anymore. So the red wire, if you had red wire, whatever pin you put on that middle row on either the left or right column, the one that I have the red wire on will go to the orange wire, and the one that I have the black wire on goes to the yellow wire, and the colors are the same on both sides for the factory plug. The door trigger wires, I just came across all my other wires, which there's a factory harness under there you can zip tie to. I just have a bunch of extra wires. Goes around, follows factory loom, keeps going down, following the factory loom, go down this body harness here. And then I pretty much just followed the AMP research instructions for their wiring for the door triggers. You come up through this boot right here. It comes up. You take up this panel, the boot is up under the carpet here. You just kind of drill a hole, poke a hole, whatever you want to do to get the wire through, pull it up, run it along these factory harnesses. The front door actually will have to go through this boot, or the front door wire has to go through this boot on both sides. Follow the factory wire up to the door switch, which you might want to check AMP steps instructions, because there are different plugs in different colors depending on the year. I think it changed after 2010. But on the rear wires, you tap them right around this region. You don't have to go into the doors for the rear doors to get that ground trigger wire. I want to make a quick note about that. If you do buy the harness that AMP Research makes, the plug that it comes with to plug into the control harness is a water resistant plug, and the one that I used and the one that I will link in the description is not a water resistant plug. So what I do is just wrap everything in electrical tape far enough back to where water can't backfeed, and follow the wire to get to the plug, which I don't think is a big deal. I'm sure it's sealed anyway. You can see this is all silicone, seal all the joints. But I did it just as a precaution. This plug down here, if you want to, AMP Research makes a override button. I think it's like $50. It's plug and play. Just plug into that and wire it yourself to keep the steps either up or down. But from what I read, that they automatically reset anyway after 30 minutes, no matter what position that you leave the switch in. So I just kind of didn't bother with it. I will just pull this fuse right here to remove power from the control box if I ever want to leave the steps up or down. The thing that I do want to mention is that this plug right here, this main harness plug, when you pin it and get ready to plug it in, it will be, well, if it's like mine, it will be very tight, and you will really have to kind of push it on there. But it does have clips on the side that lock, so you want to make sure that the 2 surfaces right here are flat and there's not a gap between them, even if the sides are locked, because the pins may not be fully seated if you don't push it all the way and make sure it's pushed all the way up. That is something that I kind of discovered when I was testing it. You just want to make sure that this plug right here is pushed all the way into the control box. So if you come across a part of your install where you're kind of testing it and you put the fuse in and nothing happens when you open the door, you may want to open your door and leave both sides open as you put the fuse in, because I believe it's something to do with, like, if it thinks the step isn't up all the way or down all the way and you supply power to the control box, it kind of just stays in a safe mode and won't put out any signal. So that's just kind of a general overview of what I did. I didn't really go into the specifics of wiring because I didn't really want to take my interior back apart, but you can pull up the AMP Research install PDF, and it'll walk through pretty much exactly how to find the wires, what color they are, and everything. I will link that in the description to their website. You just go down there and it'll say like installation guide, and you just click on it and download it. But yeah, that's about it. Show you they do work just like factory. Lights come on when you open the door. Put your foot on there. It realizes that and will not try to fight your foot. Open the door, light comes on. Retracts up after a couple seconds, lights cut off immediately. If you have any questions, just leave them down in the comments below and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability, and I will also try to link most of the major parts in the description that I used.